Welcome back to the deep dive. You've probably heard it, maybe even said it yourself. That common piece of advice, almost a command sometimes. You must be freed from the dual vision of the world.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere, isn't it? Like the ultimate spiritual goal, stop seeing good, bad, right, wrong.
Exactly. Sounds very enlightened, very peaceful. But the source material we're looking at this week, it calls that idea, straight up, a gross error.
Which is pretty provocative.
It is. And here's the immediate paradox it points out. Telling yourself you must reject duality, or you must not think that way.
No. Well, you've just created another duality. Right.
You're still stuck in black and white thinking. It's just a different flavor of it. It's this immediate sort of knee-jerk rejection without really grappling with what duality is.
And that's what we want to do today. This deep dive is about why, according to these sources, duality isn't something to be tossed aside. It's actually an essential tool.
A fundamental one.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the most surprising part we'll explore is this idea that duality isn't just about two. It's actually somehow ternary, threefold. Okay, so let's start there. How is rejecting duality a mistake? The material uses a really strong analogy.
It does. It compares trying to get rid of duality to that other common spiritual ambition, trying to get rid of your ego.
Which we also hear constantly, kill the ego, transcend the ego.
Yeah, and the source argues both are misguided in the same way. Duality, like the ego, is framed as a necessary tool. It might be annoying sometimes, might cause problems, but it's indispensable for just functioning, for navigating the world.
So the goal isn't elimination.
No, not at all. It's about finding a better usage, as the text puts it.
Yeah.
Learning to work with the tool, mastering it, rather than just trying to break it because you don't like how it feels sometimes.
Okay, so if duality is a tool, what's its main job? What's its function?
Its primary function, the source says, is enabling self-situation. Basically, you can't know where you are, who you are, without contrast.
Right. You need here versus there, me versus not me.
Exactly. Think about it practically. If you lose that ability to contrast, to self-situate, you lose all context.
Yeah.
You're just adrift. You can't know up without down, light without dark.
It provides the reference points.
Precisely. And recognizing that function, that it's about defining your place, allows you to take a little height, as the material describes it.
Meaning you don't get trapped by the dichotomy?
Yeah. You see it as a useful measuring stick, something that helps you understand, rather than this like rigid cage that's too encompassing, stifling, or compromising.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a tool for orientation. But then the material takes this, well, quite a leap. It connects duality directly to our intelligence.
It does. It argues our intellect is actually structured to think dichotomously, that this is its privileged manner for grasping the world.
Privileged. That sounds important. What does that imply?
It implies it's not just incidental, it's essential. The source is really explicit here. It says duality is a sine qua non condition for our survival.
Sine qua non, meaning absolutely necessary, without which, nothing.
Exactly. So if you try to renounce duality, you're effectively trying to renounce the development of discernment and intelligence. That's the claim.
Wow, okay, that's a huge statement. Our intelligence depends on seeing things in pairs. How does that work in a practical, survival sense?
Well, think about discernment. It's the ability to spot differences and make choices based on them. Imagine our earliest ancestors.
Okay.
You absolutely needed to distinguish instantly. Is that shadow just a shadow? Or is it a predator? Is this berry food or is it poison? Is this person part of my group or an outsider?
Safe versus unsafe. Edible versus inedible.
Yeah.
Friend versus foe. Yeah, very basic critical distinctions.
Life or death distinctions.
Yeah.
And making those distinctions, constantly processing the world through those dual lenses is what drove the development of higher level thinking, planning, strategy.
So it wasn't just about reacting, it was about choosing based on the duality.
Exactly. The source even says, pretty bluntly, that without confronting duality, we'd have stayed arborical animals, tree dwellers.
Still living in the trees.
Governed by instinct, not strategy. Coming down from the trees, needing to plan, find resources, make tools. All that required the kind of intelligence that duality fosters.
That really puts it in perspective. Our ability to think this or that literally shaped our evolution. Okay, I'm starting to buy that duality is necessary, critical even, but how does it become three? That still feels like the tricky part. If it's defined by two, where does three come from?
Right, that's the pivot. And it's really the unique insight here. The source material gives us essentially three different ways to understand this inherent threeness, this ternary structure. It's not just one explanation.
Okay, let's unpack those. What's the first facet?
The first one is probably the most familiar conceptually. It's the classic dialectic model. Think thesis, antithesis,
Oh,
synthesis,
okay.
duality, the thesis and antithesis, the opposing ideas or forces, forms the base of a triangle. But the conflict or tension between them doesn't just stay there. It pushes upwards towards a resolution, a synthesis, which is the third point, the summit of the triangle.
So the two necessarily creates a third through their interaction. Can you give a quick example?
Sure. Um, think about maybe a policy debate. Thesis: we need complete deregulation for economic growth. Antithesis: no, we need strict regulation to prevent collapse.
Two extremes.
Right. If they just fight, you get gridlock. But the debate, the tension, can lead to a synthesis. Maybe smart, targeted regulations that encourage growth while mitigating the worst risks. That's the third point, born from the first two. It's not just A or B, it's a new C.
Got it. The resolution itself is the third element. Okay, what's the second way duality is ternary?
The second facet shifts the focus from opposition to relationship. The source points out that duality isn't always about conflict. Sometimes it's about complementarity.
Like two things that fit together.
Exactly. And when you see duality that way, not as fighting, but as fitting, it also points to a ternary structure, because the two complementary parts create a whole that is greater than just the sum of those parts.
Ah, so the third element isn't a new idea emerging from conflict, but the system or the whole itself that arises from the two parts working together.
Precisely. Think of, say, positive and negative charges in electricity. They're a duality. But together, they create the phenomenon of electric current, or an electromagnetic field, the third thing, the functional whole, or inhale and exhale.
Right, you need both. And the result is breathing, life.
Yes. The third element there is the process, the system, the life that depends on that necessary interdependence. The relationship is the third dimension.
Interesting. Okay, so we have the dialectic model, synthesis from opposition,
Right.
and the complementary model, the whole emerging from interdependence. What's the third facet? You said this one was maybe the most fundamental.
Yeah, this one connects it all back to consciousness itself, and it's crucial for understanding how to maybe use this knowledge. It says that in any active observation, any experience, there are always three components, and the third one can't be reduced.
Okay, lay them out for us.
One, the observer. The subject, you.
Yeah.
Two, the object being observed. The thing, the phenomenon, the thought.
Subject, object. That's two. Still sounds dual. Where's the third?
The third is the experience of consciousness itself, which is like superimposed on both. It's the context, the field, in which the observer and observed even appear.
Explain that a bit more. If I'm looking at a cup, I'm the observer, the cup is the object. Isn't my consciousness just part of me, the observer?
Not quite, according to this view. Think of it like a magnet. You have the North Pole and the South Pole. That's the duality. But you can't have that polarity without the magnetic field that exists between and around them.
Ah, the field itself.
Yes, the field is the third element that makes the interaction, the polarity, possible. You can't just have two poles floating in nothing. The experience of consciousness is like that field. It's the irreducible context within which observer and observed make sense.
So even when I observe my own thoughts, like I'm aware I'm feeling anxious, I create a split. The I who is aware and the anxiety being observed.
Right, no stress.
But the awareness itself, the very capacity to observe, that's the third element, the feel.
Exactly. That's the constant. The source acknowledges consciousness has to operate through distinction. It thinks dually. It uses the subject-object structure.
Yeah.
But the experience of consciousness, that underlying awareness, is what makes the whole interaction fundamentally ternary. You're never just in a pair. You're always in a three-part system.
Wow. Okay, that changes things. It means even in conflict, say, between me and another person or between two choices I have, it's not just A versus B. There's always this third element, the conscious awareness holding both.
Precisely. The context is always larger than the opposition within it.
So let's bring it back. We've established duality is essential. It's how we survive, how we think, and it's inherently three-parting. So if duality itself isn't the problem, what is the mistake people make? Why the initial warning?
The source suggests the error, the gross error, happens when we take duality too definitively, or, another way to put, too personally.
What does too definitively mean in practice?
It means we forget it's a tool, a process. We grab onto one side of the duality, one idea, one identity, one pole, and treat it as absolute, fixed, the final truth.
Like taking the thesis and refusing to even consider the antithesis.
Exactly. Or seeing the poles of the magnet, but completely ignoring the field. We forget it's meant for discernment, for navigation, not as a rigid definition of reality that traps us.
So we turn the helpful measuring stick into a prison bar.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We get caught by the distinction instead of using the distinction to see the bigger picture, the third emergent element, whether that's synthesis, complementarity, or the field of awareness itself.
And that's the path to wisdom, then. Recognizing duality is essential, but also seeing its ternary nature.
That seems to be the core message. Use duality, you have to, it's how you function, but understand its limits and its deeper structure. Wisdom lies in seeing that third element, always.
So don't discard the distinction, but consciously look for the synthesis, the whole, or the underlying awareness.
Right. It shifts you from being a ping pong ball caught between two paddles to understanding the game itself, the table, the players, the air, the whole context.
Okay, so building on that, especially that third facet, observer, object, and the consciousness field, there's a final thought here, maybe something for you, the listener, to mull over.
Mm-hmm.
If consciousness has to operate dually, if that subject-to-object split is just how our minds work, how do we intentionally give more weight to that third element?
Good question.
What steps can we actually take day to day to make sure the experience of consciousness, that unifying field, is what really defines how we see things, instead of just getting lost in the opposition between us and whatever we're looking at or dealing with?
Yeah, how do you consciously inhabit the field, not just the poles? It's the difference between being controlled by the structure and mastering the context it operates within, using distinction not for division, but ultimately for a kind of unification.
Definitely something to think about. We'll leave it there for this deep dive.